Oh, what it do, yo? Back again for another edition of Live on Sundays. It's been a minute, man, because you know the month of February has been crazy. 2024 has been a tremendous month for learning, growth, connecting, building, and establishing your own self. I love to do the lives on Sunday because number one, I like to reflect. Sundays is my personal reflection day of the week because if you did not know, Sunday is really the first day of the new week beginning. And I believe it is all important for all of us to look back, see what happened, grade yourself. Personally, how did you do? Mentally, how did you do? Socially, how did you do? Did you do what you say you was going to do? Did you follow up? Anything that you are currently working on, Sunday is that day that you get that done, along with your quiet times, meal prep, all that good stuff. So I like to come on Sundays on live to not only break down a current subject, but to also give a meaningful message. Today's topic, stick with the theme of Black History Month, but I think something that we need to touch on is that when most people discuss politics in this current day and era, they don't know why it is so respectful. The reason why I think that's important because the great president we see coming back to win that crown, Donald Trump is showing us a different side of politics is the way it is. But why do most Black Americans believe that respectable politics is something, and where did that ideology come from? Again, we had a good week on Sunday again. I mean, last night, y'all. You did not know we got a men's group in Houston. Phenomenal. We did another event, man, at the Southside Bar and Lounge. If you have not been, I would love for everybody to get a chance to go out there. Beautiful venue, beautiful spot, great food, great service, a great place to go if you have an event. If you have friends that you want to celebrate with, make sure you do it. Let's go into the first start. Have you ever heard the term respectable politics? Have you ever heard the term respectable politics? Respectable politics is a political that must be respected within marginalized communities, which will push a conservative aspect of their cultural and social identity to gain mobility in certain parts of society. Respectable politics came around especially during the era of the civil rights movement. The whole ideology of respectable politics means we will be respectful when we talk to each other. We want to make sure that we have a certain amount of decorum, that we carry ourselves in a certain amount of manner, that the way we discuss our issues should be broken down in which all facets and everyone can digest and retain that information. Respectable politics is the way that we must be quiet when we speak. Respectable politics is most of our politics we see and when they speak and talk to Black Americans to this day. This ideology really became big when Dr. King was alive, which I understand. It was very valuable because we wanted to show ourselves outside of the rights and images that were once broadcast about us. If you ever look at the story, not his story, look at the story of America, you will see that propaganda was used, right? You will see that it's many images and ideologies on how Black Americans look, descendants of slaves, how we were talked about, how we had the robust lips, hypersexual, eating, the habits, the imagery. There were certain images that were focused on who we are as a people. As time has grown, sophistication, political ideologies, and different forms of things began to get noticed. So around the 60s, when the civil rights movement occurred, when the laws were getting changed, when Dr. King and every other leader at that time began to have their own stamp on what was going on in society, this ideology on how you speak publicly, how do you refer to things when discussing issues, how you have a conversation, how the current state of the political union that we see is right now. So whenever you think about politics, y'all, I want you to think about, number one, who gets what. That's what politics is. Politics is who's getting what law, how am I getting it broken down, what is it doing for me? The study of politics, no matter if you get into the details and the minutia, is who gets what. Do you get this social security program? Do you get this social program? Or do we get our taxes cut? Do you get this new housing venture in your community? Or are we getting extra income by reducing payroll for our business expenses? Politics, if you are a person that is uneducated on it, remember, it is the subject of who gets what. That's why it's so controversial. That's why it's so debated. That's why it's so discussed. That is why it is so important to be informed about it. I don't care which way you lean. I want you to be aware of these subjects once they are being discussed, once they are being mentioned, and once they are broken down. Now that we have broken down what politics is, when you look at the current state of politics in, you can say, Black society, I want you to understand where those roots and where those elements come from. Again, we had prior to civil rights movement, we had huge propaganda on what Black imagery was, right? Look at the Jim Crow movements. Read books. If you have not, I will definitely post some information about it. But it was a huge image barrier on what we were doing. Then civil rights came in. The ideology of respectable politics came about. And that is kind of where we have been since then. Be respectful. The church crowd. Speaking polishly. Carrying yourself with a certain amount of decorum. Never talking loud. Being professional. Always having a certain amount of decorum whenever you go about. Remember, your hair must be neat and tidy. Your facial imagery must be clean and neat. All of that stuff goes into respectable politics. What you need to learn is when we have these Black history moments, right? Or the stories of America, we must understand why things happen, why it is this way. Why are we assuming this is clean? Why is this assumed to be the norm? That's what I want you to get to that point too. When you hear it, I want you to always question, why is it that way? Why is it that this should be the way we speak? However, certain amount of other Americans can speak unapologetically. Who agreed that this ideology that we once carried about what is acceptable should be the norm? Who agreed to that? Where did it come from? Why is that identity so strong in our elder generation? This is why. Level 2. Now that we have gotten respectable politics down pat, right? We have broken down the ideology and the psychology on why that narrative is so pushed. The next thing I want you to understand is why the psychological effects limits many Black Americans in the way they think. So we had the ideology about political, what was correct. Then we had to break down how certain codes, how certain laws, how certain enforcement tactics were presented. Now, I want to break down something that I believe many of us heard in school, right? But many of us never knew the depth of the Black codes. The Black codes were laws used to prohibit Black Americans, natives to this country. They were restrictive laws to reduce freedom. They forced them to have cheap labor. After the Civil War was abolished, think about what you hear about sharecropping. Think about what you hear about working in farmlands. Think about what you heard working in communities where you literally had limitations on what you may do. That is why many of us went to cities. Remember, the Black codes were given after the freedom of slaves earned their rights by fighting in the war, getting their freedoms. They were limitations about what you could do, what you could sell, what you could have, what you can do, and what you had access to. So I want you to think about this. Many of us have no ideology or no understanding on, man, when former enslavement happened, right? When the civil rights movement, the War of 1864, the Civil War happened, when the Reconstruction era began, we think of these times as this Reconstruction happened, harmony and union was a rise. No, even during the period of Reconstruction, while we were trying to establish the native blacks, formerly known as Negroes or colors at this time, their own personal movements that we see occurring in this country, you begin to see other Americans have anti-belief systems about that. So while Reconstruction was strong, it was using the labor to uprise themselves, build a strong economic base. You must understand that there were codes and laws counteracting that. So while Reconstruction was going strong, you had laws that were cutting it off at the knees. So you see this group of people growing up, positively growing. You see the story of America. They're getting traction, they're getting mobility, and then you see it being cut off. If you look at history, Reconstruction was working. The freedmen bureaus, the freedmen houses, these programs to establish and help spark these communities show, if you look at the period of Black Wall Streets throughout all of this country, show that once they got the rights and the individual transparency, they began to create their own communities. However, as their communities began to get successful, that is when the ethnic cleansing began to happen. Not getting too far ahead of ourselves. You saw them getting their own land. You began to see the black codes getting enforced. Remember, they were 100% of the labor class. The labor class got free, already had the labors and skills. You still had to pay them to do the work. So now I'm free. You must pay me, and I have all the rights the same as you. What's going to happen? I'm going to start to produce. My family is going to get traction. I'm going to get money. I'm going to gain leverage. I'm going to start winning within our society. What's going to happen next? Resentment. Resentment is going to occur. Issues are going to arise. Battle, beefs, untold discussions will occur at points in time throughout history. So let's go back to the forward. We see a battle occurring. We see laws being restriction. We see programs beginning to work. Then they stop. As we tell the story, remember, I don't want you to get caught up in his story. History means one side told from a different point of view. What I want you to remember is that you must learn the story of America, the story of a person, the story of the story of the past. I want you to learn every angle, every point of view, every segment from that. That is how I want you to start thinking from now on. I'm not saying history does not have its importance, but we need to emphasize the story and how we learn. Let's keep going. So we have the black codes being enforced, right? We begin to see other elements start to get passed. What we start to see, unrightful freedmen pass. We begin to see the rise of the criminal law class, right? Because if you did not know, again, let's talk to the story. You have Civil War, slavery. Then you began to have something known as convict leasing. Have y'all ever seen the movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence? A great film, a great movie. What most people do not understand is that was 100% real. Convict leasing was something that happened in this country for over 90 years. Convict leasing is when companies would arrest you for minor charges and give you outrageous time and sentencing. So if I got arrested in Louisiana and I had a railroad that needed to be built, you would arrest your citizens, trade with them state by state to make them work for free because they were a captive of the state. And this was something that was happening for nearly 90 years. Think about this. During the height of freedom in this country, we still saw acts and different things being passed to damper and limit what other American citizens could do. So, as we discuss the politics, the laws, and the story of this country, I want you all to know it in totality. I want you all to understand when you hear these type of subjects, I want you to be informed. I want you to be educated. And I want you to be honest about what you're hearing and what you're understanding. As we continue to go, as we break down our subjects, we also must understand the new political landscape. The new political landscape, which isn't new, but I can say newish in the way we go about it and how we teach it, is that politics is all theater. Politics is all about who you know. It's about the clickbait. It's about the hook points. It's about the one-liners. It's about the statements that can get the people going. It's about who can rally their base of people that believe in supporting you. That is what politics is all about. The great Fred Hampton said, politics, it's war without bloodshed. I'm going to say it again. Politics is war without bloodshed. Politics is the battle of me telling another people that you're not doing something, you're taking away from what we get, so we can have those same amount of rights and discussions that you are having. So once we learn that the state of how Black history is earned, taught, embraced, educated, and discussed is all a political faction. Politics is not a dirty word. I believe it is something that is extremely positive. I believe it is something that should be taught and educated about. You need to learn the foundations of it. You need to learn what it works, why it matters, why it's important, no matter if you like it or dislike it. I'm not saying you even got to talk about it openly, but you must have a concept of the foundation pieces. As we move on, why does all this matter, Terrell? Why are you telling me all this, King Crowder, about politics? Why are you telling me about stuff that does not affect me? I live in a country. I pay my taxes. I pay my bills. I do what I'm supposed to do. True. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with you thinking that way. But what I want to tell you, if you do not know the stories, they'll repeat themselves. What do you mean? You don't know the stories, they repeat themselves. What if I told you everything that we're seeing currently in this country with the migrant crisis in New York, with the migrants going to Chicago, DC, the bus crisis? What if I told you all of that has already happened and we just don't discuss it? You're going to think I'm crazy, right? You're going to think, man, this dude don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about the migrants in New York City and all of that. What about what I'm getting? Why do we need to know about any of these type of things? Why is this important to me? I don't care. I still got to go to work in the morning. I don't think any of that's important. What if I told you everything that we are seeing right now has happened already? What you mean, man? What you talking about? What if I told you the crisis, the migrant battles that we see in this country has already happened? Would you believe me? Would you say that I'm lying? Would you say that I don't know what I'm talking about? I will let you and say everything that you're saying is a valid point if you don't know history. But if you look at history, one thing that we don't know is that I think we all had history class, right? Maybe world history. I've been world. No, it's United States history. You know what's one of the three greatest things in United States history that we heard that didn't dive deep in our mind, our complex? We're talking about the story of America. Three things that we all should learn. I'm going to even type them in the chat. We learned about the Homestead Act. And when we talked about the Homestead Act, we kind of glossed over it. We didn't think about it in great detail. It was like one of those things was like the Homestead Act. You know, what is that? Blah, 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 blah. We heard about that, and we never took a dive into why it was so important. And then we heard about the Revolutionary War. And then I'm typing it up as we speak, y'all. And then we heard a debate and discussion on the Spanish-American War. I'm a pin them. Excuse my filthy handwriting, y'all. Excuse me. I'm going to pin these things that we need to discuss. The Homestead Act, for those that do not know, let's read it together. The Homestead Act of 1862 allowed anyone, read it again. The Homestead Act of 1862 allowed anyone who was the head of their household to apply and receive federal grant and federal licensing once they became a United States citizen. What? Let's read it one more time in case people did not get it. In 1862, anyone over the age of 21 was allowed to earn federal land if you became a United States citizen and decided to come to the United States. You mean the land that was already secured by many Native Americans? You mean the land that already was owned and worked on by many people that were already there? You mean the land that was already had rights to it? If you were outside of this country, you were allowed to come here and get free. You were allowed to come here, and the federal government would sign you over, right, saying, this is what you want. This is what you qualify for. This is land that you can own and operate. Pay attention to the time, y'all, because it sneaks past a lot of people and we don't pay attention to it. This happened in 1862. What was going on prior to 1862? Secession, slavery, the South deciding to go against the North and seceding from the United States, the Confederate soldiers fighting to uphold slavery. That's what it was about. Let's keep it real. We ain't gonna lie today. It was about whatever you want to say, heritage. I will give. Let's just say I'll give you that. But let's say slavery was the main point, right? When these things were starting to happen, people from outside of this country moved to America and got free land. And the citizens that were actively in this country that may have looked different did not qualify for them. Why is that such a big deal? Isn't that a lot what the government is pushing some of the things in the migrant crisis currently? They are getting benefits from coming here that many citizens of America do not get. People look at you like you're crazy when they don't understand how history repeats itself. Free people from another country are getting land opportunities in the same way that the Homestead Act happened too. I'm not saying how you should feel about it. What I'm saying is that if you don't know the stories of these countries, they will begin to repeat themselves. The Homestead Act has happened and it's happening again. Number two, another part of history that we learned that did not stick in our mind, that influenced us, especially the story of America, especially in Black history class, the Revolutionary War. Many people forget the Revolutionary War was when we fought the Britain off and we earned our freedom in America, right? When the 13 colonies, you know the history, yada, 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 what we were taught. What we did not teach as well is that once they earned their freedom, many people began access and became American citizens. They earned their freedoms, except for the Black Americans. The law was already set in place prior to the United States officially being formed because there were people already living here. Once the United States became a country of its own, signing that the Bill of Rights, the United States Constitution, everything that happened, you must understand that there was already movement and formations occurring. There was already things in this country that were happening. People were already here. So why did people that were already here have to refight to establish themselves? Because we call them slaves, but actuality, they were POWs, prisoners of war. And there's nothing wrong with putting that in its totality and context. You lost the war, you were held captive, you were POWs, you had to work the land, restrictions and limitations to what you could not do began to happen. As we learned about history in totality, those are gaps in information that we miss. We miss those points of how those type of structures and things that we were taught are not emphasized. The Homestead Act, Revolutionary War. The number 3 most important historical moment that we hear about, but we don't retain in history, the Spanish American War. Look at my horrible spelling. Spanish American War. Excuse me. Let me write that again. Spanish. Lord, look at me. I can't type and talk, y'all. Spanish American War. I see what it is now, y'all. It's not me. It's typing slow as I go. That's what it is. So, the Spanish-American War, for those who do not know, we won the land from Mexico. We live in North Mexico in Houston, Texas. It was originally Mexico at one point in time. We sold and bought this land from Mexico for $16 million, right? At the time. After we bought that land and we earned the freedom, we must understand that there were reparations, consultation prize were paid. Another part of American history we miss. As they were paid to get this land mass and there was a civil agreement formed, what we miss is that was another point in time when many Native Americans, Black Americans to this country did not get what the government said. So let's recap. We have the Homestead Act, which we saw migrants move in here and get opportunity in land that most other Americans did not qualify for. We saw the Revolutionary War that said that all Americans deserve their freedoms, except for the racial class. Then we see it wrapped up and comprehensive after the Spanish and American War. When the war happened down here in Texas, if you have not learned Texas state history, the Jalados, the Comanches, all this information is very prevalent. Then we see acts and agreements and payments being issued. As we fast forward now, let's keep going. History shows that the victor writes the story and creates the narrative. So, after the Homestead Act, we see migrants coming to this country, getting free land. That's what it is, y'all. Coming to this country, getting rights, getting opportunities that many natives of this country do not qualify for. But however, the problem that we have now is that the social media, political opinions of more people, the government cannot hush what the American citizens are saying. They are telling you in real time what they approve of and what they do not, because they are not getting the same benefits of other people as they once got. Why is this so important, you ask? The reason why this is so important when you keep your Black history or American history in important perspective is that when we learn these milestones, I want you to check how many benefits, goodies, negotiables, tangible resources have been given out to not Black American citizens. 0. Other groups, other ethnicities have been given a base, a core, a landing spot, a leg up, a negotiating tool, an investment, a floor, a belief system, a support system. They all got something that was government issued, government protected, government mandated, and businesses even invested in it. Now, why is this information so prevalent? It's so prevalent because now the psyche of we deserve the same thing is why the reparation movement is so strong. And if you don't know anything about cut the check and all of these different things going on, I highly want you to educate yourself. But the reason why this right and bill and this law is such a strong thing inside of American society, because it's going to happen. No matter when, no matter how, I don't even know how it will be done. But I do believe that the case has been given. Those seeds have been sold. The laws have dictated and shown how and what it will do to occur. If you look at the stories of American history, they show you where things are going. They show you how things are happening. And they also give you a blueprint on what you can expect. During this next election cycle, don't care about who you're voting for. No matter what your belief system is, you will see a new ideology be present. The new ideology will be anti this. We need changes here because what we are currently doing may not be working. It is not my job to influence you or sway you. My job is to make you aware of what's going on. Your job is to choose what works best for you and your family. So, if you question some things and wonder how Americans are viewing these current issues, I love TikTok, y'all. Me, love it. I believe it gives you a pulse on what the current culture and what the current ideology thinking is in this country. So, it was a gentleman in New York City interviewing migrants. I want you to read it.
¿Cuánto tiempo han estado quedándose aquí en el Rojo Hotel?
Desde yo llegué julio,
¿Cuántos meses es eso?
como 7 meses.
¿Y han tenido que pagar alojamiento?
No, nada, no he pagado nada.
¿Es 100% gratis?
Sí, sí.
¿Y le dan almuerzo, desayuno?
Sí, sí, le dan cosas del niño, personales, nos dan pañales, lo que necesiten ellos.
¿Y ahí en el hotel hacen limpieza de las puertas?
Sí, hacen. Sí, todos los días hacen limpieza, cambian las sábanas, hacen aseo.
¿Todos los días hacen eso?
Sí, todos los días.
¿Han podido conseguir trabajo ustedes?
No. Yo no.
Si ustedes tuvieran un problema de medicina, ¿cómo podrían recibir ayuda con eso?
Bueno, con una tarjeta, la del seguro de Medicare. Y la MetroPlus. Nosotros tenemos la MetroPlus y eso nos abarca el seguro que nosotros necesitamos para los niños y también nosotros nos beneficiamos de eso.
¿Se sintieron apoyados gracias a nuestro presidente Joe Biden?
Bueno, sí. Sí, porque si no estamos trabajando ni nada, él es el que nos está ayudando prácticamente.
Entonces, ¿quién está apoyándoles en todo eso? ¿Sería el gobierno?
Bueno, el gobierno. La verdad, el gobierno, pero no sé. En realidad no sé.
Y ustedes saben que los ciudadanos de Nueva York que están pagando por todo eso, ¿cierto? Es su dinero de los impuestos.
No sé.
¿Supieron eso?
That interaction right there, hopefully you got to read it, the lines from it. That's very eye-opening. Because I want you to see that many people, especially in New York, are pushing back on this. Because it is eye-opening how many migrants are getting free stuff. Now, the interesting part that many people in the society, especially our politicians, did not estimate is how these social media norms will be highlighting these things. Think about it back in the day during the Homestead Act, you can see via Instagram people getting free land that you were living upon. Do you think they can get by with these type of things? No. Do you think them doing that will be acceptable? No. Do you think that these migrants and different people moving to this country, getting things, which I understand, y'all, a lot of them come from very depressed lands. I am not anti that. But what I am showing is that I want you to make an informed decision about how things in history still influence us, and we try to repeat those same tasks, but we're in a much different place in history than we've ever been. Accessibility is at an all-time high. Communication is so much easier. Visualization of the communication, seeing in real time what's going on in other states, even though you live in one. This is why we see the radicalization of political ideologies. We see the radicalization of people living in this country who are seeing how are you getting money and others are not. We're also seeing crime rise. We're also seeing resentment. We're seeing it in real time. So the reason why I want to summarize and I wanted to talk to my people tonight is because I want you to understand the power of how history has an influence on us. No matter what your ideology is, no matter how you think, I want you to understand that the stories always come back and they tend to repeat. The question is, once you learn from these stories that are political, that are laws, and the stories of these countries, do you repeat them or do you learn from them? We are seeing that respectable politics is not going to work with a new generation of people. We're tired of it. Respectable politics is tell them what you want to hear. Don't tell the truth. Be inauthentic. People hate it. People reject and honestly believe that everybody lies to you based off what respectable politics is. We are in a generation of anti-respectable politics, if you didn't know. People want the truth. People want transparency. It is the reason why, literally, President Trump, former President Trump, is so popular. He comes off as authentic. He comes off as telling the truth. No matter if you don't believe him, no matter if you like him, if you dissupport him, you're missing the point. What you have to understand is that his gravitas is, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to tell you the truth no matter who loves it. I know I may have my ideology. I know I may have racist tendency. I know I may be a suspect, whatever. But I want you to understand where that logic comes from. No matter what you think, no matter what I think, you must be able to understand why that connection is so strong. The connection is so strong amongst many Americans is because he comes off as authentic. We have an authenticity problem. You can't lie to American citizens. You can't. You cannot tell us what I'm seeing is not real. You cannot tell us what we're discussing and talking about is not what it is. That is the problem we have right now. So we see what's going on. We see who's getting supported. We see who's getting benefits, but we don't see the ramifications of them. So as you learn and you go about your day, I want you to remember the stories repeat, but the lessons don't. Your job is to make sure that you educate yourself enough to know when you see these landmines, you don't have to engage, but you are aware what the process leads. No matter what you feel, I want you to educate yourself about what happened, what really happened, what occurred, what really occurred. Not one side, not what you read, not what they told you, but in actuality, who influenced us? Who warned us? Why is this so important? Why is this history so not taught? And once you start to answer those questions, you will begin the path on your own journey. In America, most things are not taught to us, not even in college. I hate to say it. Most of my learning about stories about self came from family, self-reading, listening to our scholars and our people before us. It is your job to educate yourself. Education doesn't mean going to school. It doesn't mean reading the law book, reading the politics, but you must read in between those lines and learn what they said, what she said, and combine it for yourself. I am here to educate you because the stories repeat themselves. American history is unique, interesting, and very deep. Learn that we have presidents before our actual presidents. Who knew? Learn that we have towns that outlawed other people. Who knew? Learn that we had acts that already gave people free land, free credit, just by coming here if you are a migrant, i.e. the Homestead Act. Who knew? Learn that we have had communities built for certain Americans and excluded other Americans. Levittown, redlining, other historical documents. Learn that marriage was outlawed along with reading at many parts in history. learned that it was called dysphoria for people that wanted to run away even though they were prisoners of war. It is your job from this moment on to learn these stories of American history. We are not taught it. We must learn everything meaningful on your own. Hopefully, you take a nugget that I dropped down and you caught it up and you start your own journey. It's not going to start overnight. It's not going to happen immediately. But I want everybody to know, look at your leaders. Learn from everybody. Chew the fat, spit out the bone. You don't have to agree. I prefer you actually not to. But while you don't agree, prove me wrong. Do your own research. Do your own reading. Read your information and learn what actually happened in this country. This year gonna be a crazy year, y'all. Remember, local first, national second. Galvanize your troops and also know what others in your community are actually doing. I'm not just talking about it. I'm actually demonstrating it. Keep the momentum going with yourself. Remember, we are not outnumbered. A lot of us are just out organized. And until you learn from your mistakes, learn the blessings, learn the message, you will continue to repeat the same lesson. It's your boy, King Crowder, back again with another flamethrower lesson. Today's lesson was part 2 on the Black History series, or the stories of American history. I wanted to give a focus on politics, where the origins and where it came from, the laws, the limitations and restrictions. This includes the Spanish-American War, the Homestead Act, and the current migrant crisis. Why is all this important? Because you will see these cycles rinse, wash, and repeat until we address the root issue and the root causes. I don't want you to go back and forth and tell the people what you think or what you should worry about learning. The point is to get the message and understand where we are potentially going. The reason why it's not so easy to implement, because we are in a place in history that has never been or never been done. We are in a place where people want to hear the truth, and we all question the government. You ain't gotta like what I'm saying. You ain't gotta love my message, but I want you to get the understanding, and I want you to start your own research and your own evidence. Until next time, have fun this week. Work hard. Celebrate yourself because nobody else will. Talk, pray, read, have a alone time, whatever you need to do. Remember, they ain't going to care about you. Only your spouse and your family will. So make sure you celebrate them, celebrate yourself, and most importantly, smile, laugh, and learn something. Until next time, it's your boy. Check it out. About to watch All-Star Game. Peace.